the deadpan of the delivery, I think, is what really brings up morale.
Thank you for joining the Escape With Me Book Club. Escape with me, Sam Reiner.
And me, Danielle.
Into our most recent read. Come with us as we evade reality and go into detail about a new book. We'll be covering the book from beginning to end, so there will be spoilers. Today we're going to Earth and the Moon and Earth again, because why not? Published December 14th, 2015. Stars Above is a compilation of short stories, mainly involving the cast from the Lunar Chronicles main series. With new beginnings and a new ending, how does the short story format hold up to the long-form content the author usually writes? Because Winter, gosh dang.
Yeah, it definitely, after coming from Winter, which is 1,000 million bajillion pages, not an approximation at all.
It is very short. But background to this, you got me hooked on the series, so you've known the series for much longer, and I loved Lunar Chronicles. We read the first book, and I was like, we're doing all of them.
It's so good.
And it's been a series that I've heard you talk about for a while. I think all the way back to when we were living together, which was forever ago.
I suggest this one and mean it with my whole chest, and then I suggest Uglies, and I'm like, no, but please don't judge me for liking the series. But for this one, any person, any random TikTok that they're talking about vaguely YA, dystopian, any kind of whatever, I'm like, you like Cinderella? You like some fantasy? You like some sci-fi? Literally, I book rec this to everybody. It's such a good series.
I even made my husband read it.
Is he interested in the rest of it? Or because Cinder can end on its own, and it's clearly a cliffhanger, but you can be done with the series if you decide to. You shouldn't. You should definitely read every single one, and they're fantastic. But some series, it's like, oh, you only made this a cliffhanger so that I have to read the next 12 books, and I hate that.
So he liked the book in and of itself. I don't think he's going to continue the series, though, because it has a couple things that's it's YA-isms.
It's so YA.
That you and I are used to and we have accepted and are fine with, but him coming from whatever hard literature he's been reading, his super intense sci-fi, whatever, and then to come to that, and he was just like, they fall in love for no reason. I'm like, that's why it's great.
Oh, but it's like the long game fall in love.
It is, but it isn't, because seriously, they come to the market stall and they're both like, wow, I am suddenly in love with you, basically. Which comes up in this book, so to pivot back around to this one, so we read the first 4 for the podcast. We read Fairest. Still regret that order, should have listened to you.
Yeah.
So we get through all the 5 of those books. So in my mind, I was like, okay, we just have Stars Above left. And so we get to the end of Fairest, we're talking about the next book, and you're like, I don't want to do Stars Above. I was like, that's weird. You love all of these books. You read them constantly. You're like, no, let's do this whole other series.
I was going to say, we did this one so long ago.
Let's do this whole other series before I could convince you to come back around and finish this for completion's sake. And at the time, I was very surprised. I was very confused. It was so weird. You're such a fangirl, even for stuff that sucks. So it was just surprising. You read specials when you reread Uglies. So that just says everything. But not this one.
This is the 3rd time I've done this particular book, but I've done the whole series like 7 or 8 times now.
Which says something. So I'm just confused, whatever. But having read the book, I now get what you were saying. Because you were like, some of them are good, but most of them aren't. And it's just a lot of nothing. And I was just so confused. And now having read it, yeah, that's pretty accurate.
Yeah. Well, and I went and looked at a couple of my copies, and a couple of them are in the afterwards of some of the physical books, at least in my copies, because I have the black hardback.
So you have the really nice ones. I have the box set that has the second renditions of the covers, which I have a love-hate relationship with. But I'd have to check again, but I don't think any of them had short stories. They had talking with the author sections. Let's ask you questions and put stuff in. And my Stars Above had a whole couple chapters from her book, Heartless.
Yeah.
And so some of those do that, but I don't remember seeing any of these short stories before. I feel like I would have read them. But before we get too into it, age level still YA, and content warning is so all over the place. Some of the stories have no content warnings whatsoever. Some of them have all of the content warnings. But overall, the book in general has sex mentioned, child abuse, death of a parent, death of a spouse, needles, graphic violence, blood, murder, suicide, forceful loss of autonomy / kidnapping, but it's the lunar thing. I don't know. I had to phrase that differently. Death of a child and rape implied. Judge a book by its cover. The only thing I really got from it was like, yeah, that's Cinder and Kai. Definitely on the cover. Obviously, Kai proposes finally. So there's that.
Mine's the cute one. It's a pillow and it has the crown, but it's got electricity coming off the crown.
It is pretty cute cover. That's the original cover. I have Kai proposing to Cinder by the river. I will admit, I do like your cover better. But the inside has the little flap art and whatever. And it's all the women from the series dressing up Scarlet for her wedding. So with the two of those, I thought we were going to have way more stories after the book takes place. But no, most of the stories, as in all of them but one, are prequels. And then we have the ending story where Scarlet gets married.
Well, because even the Little Mermaid one is a prequel because Cinder's in it for like 2 seconds.
And that's when she had her shop.
Yeah.
So before Cinder.
Yeah. So even the one not related to them at all is a prequel.
Yeah. So that surprised me going into this.
Well, and when you were asking about like when should we do this, because of the one little chapter with the Scarlet, the wedding, like the last short story, it gives just enough away and completes the series that you can't do before. But I like all of the little prequels if they were included in the books that they are the prequel for, even as an afterword, but all of them need to be with their proper book. They've made new copies since I've gotten my series, and it's confusing that your series doesn't have them with the companion one.
Yeah, I guess because my box set includes Stars Above, they specifically don't. So you wouldn't have like a bunch of repeats, I think.
Yeah, I don't like it, so for no reason. Because the only one that I do have a copy of is the Glitches. Glitches is in, I want to say, the end of Cinder.
It might be. I think Glitches is 0.5 for her. Because if you go in the Goodreads tab.
Oh, I could have logged these all individually?
Yeah, they are all logged individually. Don't do it, you cheater.
I might have done that last time I did this book, actually.
So if you go into that, it lists Stars Above, but it also has Glitches is a 0.5. There's a couple that's like 1.5, 1.6, 1.7, one of those. And because it has several prequels of characters that you meet in the book or whatever. And so, yeah, they are listed separately in the Goodreads, but Stars Above is listed as a main work. But yeah, so we have The Keeper, which is kind of a Scarlet prequel, but it's more so we get to learn about Michelle more, her grandmother, which I thought was an interesting point of view. Although it made me not like Michelle.
Because she tried to send Scarlet away?
Well, not that. I understand being frustrated and not sure what to do, but you find out that Logan, who is the lunar that she ended up having a relationship with. Okay, I liked that part. I liked in the beginning when you got to learn how Michelle met Logan and about lunars and how she kind of got on board with how in the world did you become the person that hid the lunar princess from Levana and all that. So that was really good. That was really interesting. And then she's back on Earth and whatever, running a farm. Logan shows up one day and tells her about the mission. Okay, this is a thing.
It's also like 30 years later.
Yeah, it's a long time later, which, by the way, this is one of the things I didn't like. I don't like some of her choices. Logan never knows that she was pregnant with his child, ever.
And potentially, I mean, not the first, but because of the missions and stuff, at that time, how many escaped lunars were coming to Earth? This potentially could have been the first interspecies, whatever, child born.
Thankfully, the lunars haven't evolved past a point where they don't look human, like they have something weird about them. So you're playing a game here, I feel like.
But they stayed on Luna and Earthans stayed on Earth until they all started going to Farafra in Africa. Literally, this potentially could have been the first child born from this.
Yeah, because when they first colonized the moon, they have good relations. And then after a while, they had bad relations. And Earth was like, nope, I don't want any of your kind. Of course, people came anyway. But yeah, no clue about this. I don't...
Just one of those random thoughts.
So she leaves. I guess she didn't realize on Luna that she was pregnant. She leaves. She finds out she's pregnant. He shows up to her doorstep. What is it? She has her kid. So I think it is 30 years. She has her kid and her kid has a kid. Would you find out more about Scarlett's parents? And gosh, they're terrible. You got the vibe that he was terrible from Scarlett, but seeing it from Michelle's point of view, the adult being like, oh no, they're trash. Trash.
Well, and in Scarlett, he had just been kidnapped for a week and tortured and whatever. So him coming in seeming crazy and terrible is also more understandable.
Yeah, how much of this is his personality and how much of this is I've just gone crazy from being tortured. My psyche has been broken.
Yeah. Well, and there had been a couple comments where it's like her grandmother would never have said her dad was weak, even though he clearly was. Scarlett acknowledges that in the book Scarlett, but it's just, yeah, but weak what? Weak with women, weak with drink, physically weak. And then you see him in this and it's, oh yeah, it's because he sucks. He doesn't want to be a dad. She's 7 or 11 when she takes the train by herself.
I want to say it's 7.
And then she comes back. But she's 7 years old, gets on a train and he's like, what do you want me to do? She can come back because she could get on the train herself.
Pretty bad.
Ugh, so gross.
And here's the thing. Here's my issues with the stories in the end. They don't go deep enough because Michelle does say things like, oh, I clearly am the problem because my son became like this. And in Scarlett, he mentions, no, she was a terrible mother.
But it's him saying she was a terrible mother.
And so I want to delve into that. What happened here? What was going on in this relationship? How come it was so bad? And she tries to flood it off and be like, oh, it's because I was a working mom and he didn't get to spend that much time with me. And she would be a single mom. So I guess he spent a lot of time by himself. I don't know. It doesn't go deep enough. It just like barely touches the surface with that. And I'm like, oh, but that's where it's interesting. Dang it. We don't just make it longer. It's fine.
They're short stories.
They're so short and they shouldn't be. She's so much better at longer, in-depth stories. But so we get that and we get Scarlett. Sometimes we get Scarlett's point of view. Sometimes it's Michelle's point of view. So yeah, we get young little Scarlett making her way on the train and showing up and the grandma being like, oh, what? You have come all the way from Paris to the middle of nowhere, France, by yourself, and your father didn't even know? It's a whole thing. But yeah, Logan shows up and is like, hey, we need her to be here, and sets up a whole laboratory and stuff. And I don't know, the entire time he's there, and he just doesn't tell him. And then when he comes the second time to wake Cinder up a little early, which I have other thoughts about, we'll get to there. But when he gets there and he sees Scarlett, and she's just like, that's my granddaughter. And he has so many questions. And granted, he doesn't end up asking any, but I don't know.
I think he knew, but he was almost lunar sickness from going crazy.
So what is it even at that point? But
yeah.
But I don't know.
It's bad on her. She shouldn't have let it get that long.
What if her son started developing powers? He doesn't. But that's something we need to consider here. And did she just wait and hope that he never developed powers and just didn't say anything? Because the son doesn't know he's lunar.
Yeah.
Scarlett doesn't know she's lunar.
Well, I mean, Scarlett would have only been a 4th lunar, so the chances of her having powers were slim, but...
Especially if her dad didn't, but I don't know.
Not 0%.
It's not 0. What if he started developing powers? And we don't know because she doesn't delve into the son's childhood or anything like that. Like, how did the conservative farm community, it seems like, react to this woman, pregnant pilot? So many questions that we just don't explore because we have to get to other people's prequels. But we do get that whole, we only have 2 prototypes, and Logan saying, no, you should have it. So Cinder should have it, and Michelle has it. There's a plot hole here to me. Maybe it's because they didn't realize at the time that they could stop lunar sickness. But at the same time, that's why they're implanting it to begin with for Cinder, so it doesn't happen. So why doesn't Logan take the implant? That way he doesn't get lunar madness.
Because he's also not far enough gone with it that he can't make rational decisions.
Yeah, and so why doesn't he take the implant, doesn't have lunar sickness, and then he can come back when she is 17, 18, or whatever age was appropriate for her to learn her place and stuff. That was very weird. And then Michelle just immediately is like, yes, I need to have it. Why?
Girl, what do you mean?
Why you?
I know it comes up in the book Scarlet because they do eventually find her and torture her or whatever, but they could have done that to Logan Tanner if he hadn't died. And then if Lynn Guerin, Cinder's stepdad, if he also didn't die, they were just going to let him, the person housing her.
He invented it, but the first prototype given to this random girl and this random woman, not to himself, while he himself has Cinder in his care.
Yeah.
In a country that Levana is trying to take over.
Yeah.
She's not over in France. I mean, her wolves are, you come to find out, but she herself is not over in France. Who picked Michelle?
Yeah, Guerin should have had it. I think Logan Tanner was supposed to get it, and he either still had some kind of feeling or some kind of whatever. He's like, this is how I can protect you. And it's like, dude, you're not far enough gone. You have to be in love or some kind of guilt for this to make sense.
But we hit the point that I hit in Scarlet. She doesn't even for a second think about Scarlet. This prequel proves that she heard, oh, you're getting the implant, and she's like, oh, okay, good.
To be fair, she doesn't think Scarlet knows anything.
But that doesn't stop. You don't think a Lunar's going to come up, walk up to your house? The fact of the matter that she got kidnapped instead of Scarlet happened by circumstance. If Scarlet is home while the Lunars rock up to your house, she could get tortured. She could be used against you. She could be mind controlled, and she does get mind control later in the books. And I'm just...
My thing with that, I'm sure we already had talked about it, but I can't remember because that was so long ago we did this series. Why did they not kidnap Scarlet? Why did they kidnap the dad?
When did they kidnap the grandma? They kidnapped the grandma. She was been gone for a little while. So then they kidnapped the dad to try to make her talk. But as the dad says, he just kept getting tortured and she just kept not giving any information.
But why would the dad not have been like, hey, to save himself, because he clearly is a save himself kind of guy. Hey, my daughter, she cares about the girl, not me. It just doesn't make sense that nobody came and got her before.
Because Wolf kind of shows up and is like, hey, we should go on this adventure to save your grandma, basically. So that kind of works out, but yeah.
So the grandma had been gone for over 2 weeks, and I think the dad was kidnapped 11 days ago or something, because he did like 11 fights or something.
It's something.
The dad had been kidnapped almost as long as the grandma was gone. He only just now was returning, and whatever. That's not about this book at all. Let's just talk about Scarlet some more, because this teeny tiny little portion of a book
is kind of about Scarlet, but from an interesting perspective. I don't like that she just had no thoughts for Scarlet there, because I would be okay if she finally decided, you know what, I have the information, I need to do this. Guerin, as soon as you get the next one, send it to us. Please come back, give it to my granddaughter so my granddaughter can also be safe.
Even if the answer's no, say the words out loud, ask the question.
Have any sort of care for someone that's not you.
Yeah.
I don't agree with a lot of the decisions that Michelle makes.
Well, Scarlet is so removed from the grandmother. She already was like, oh, well, 50 years ago, she was a space pilot to Luna, which they do eventually track down. But okay, but what are the chances she's going to search out the whole family line?
Very high, apparently.
But then Scarlet goes and lives with her. That's so different than some random granddaughter 4 towns over that you never see. She should have cared more about her granddaughter.
Yeah.
But I think I'm done ranting on this one.
For real, though.
That's it. That's the whole story.
The only other thing I will say about this story is for a teenager, Scarlet is very good at communicating her hurt. She's very good at it. She's upset with the grandma because she wants to send her away or whatever. And she's like, I'm upset because all my life I've never been chosen by anyone but you. And now you're not choosing me or something. And it was just very eloquent. I was like, I'm very shocked that this teenager is like, I know what is actually causing my hurt and not just the peripheral stuff. And I can communicate it in this moment right now. Very impressed, Scarlet. Very impressed. So yeah, next you have Glitches, which is Cinder's backstory, which I really enjoyed this one because it was kind of a new perspective.
Little baby Cinder, she's so cute.
Cinder traveling with Guerin to the Eastern Commonwealth, and then you have some of the characters felt a little rewritten in portions. Here's an example. We don't learn much about Garen, but we do learn a couple things about Garen. But in this book, he's very, very nervous. That is just a personality trait in and of himself, is he's just very nervous. And he makes Cinder feel uncomfortable because he's nervous.
But not like in a creepy way.
Not in a creepy way, but because he's nervous, she also feels nervous.
He has a big giant secret that nobody knows about.
Yeah, and he doesn't really know how to talk to this random girl.
To be fair, he also, I think, has one conversation with his own daughters the whole time.
Yeah, it's new information, but it explains a lot about his personality and how all this came to be in the end. But we get to see Cinder and Peony's friendship blossom. We get to see Cinder getting used to her cyborgness. We get to learn about why she became an android person. We get to kind of get a feel for Audrey from the very beginning.
We get Aiko!
We get Aiko. Cinder recreates Aiko. We get Audrey tripping Cinder's lie detector without Cinder knowing it's a lie detector yet. We just get so much good stuff. And then Cinder wants to be helpful, but they're not sure what she can do, and it doesn't seem like she can do a lot of housework. And so it's very frustrating for Audrey, and they're about to be kicked out of their house because freaking Garen has a workshop in the back, and that's all he's been doing. He's just back there, and he's like, oh, don't worry, when I go to Japan in 3 months, all our lives are going to be changed. And Audrey's like, cool, we need housing now. We can't just live off your awards. And I was like, ooh, that's rough. I feel for Audrey. Oh, gosh. I didn't think I could feel for Audrey, of all people.
Well, and he literally goes on vacation, picks up a random teenager. They already can't feed the family that they have. And I know some of it is Audrey's lifestyle. She wants to feel rich, so they do have a little bit nicer things than maybe above their means.
I don't know. The nicer things they have, it feels like things of the past. Like maybe she comes from a very high fancy family. We don't know. But that's why she has those kimonos and they're so pretty and stuff. But she walks around, and when we're in Cinder properly, absolutely, she definitely lives above her means. Sorry, Cinder's means. But in this book, it really felt like they were just barely scraping by, and she was doing the best she could in a situation where she just didn't have. It seems like she was raised to be a housewife, and that was the only skill she has, which makes me think she comes from an upper family and maybe even has the stereotype of the dad being like, he can't make money, and she's like, but I love him, and then they get married and have 2 kids, and she's like, crap, he can't make money. Oh no, we're in a spot. But it's a short one, relatively.
This one feels shorter than all the other ones.
It does, and it's so good.
Yeah.
I wanted it to be longer because, oh my goodness, Aiko's been taken to pieces because Audrey was going to sell her for parts and then sucked at selling her for parts.
She does that a lot, actually.
And so she's just taken apart in a box. And Cinder sees it. Her cyborg self downloads the blueprints, and she's like, hey, I can't do the housework, but if I can repair this android, the android can help with the housework and stuff. And so she repairs it, and it takes about 3 days for her to do it. And oh my gosh, the day.
Oh.
Cinder finishes it. She puts it on a charging port. Peony is amazed. She thinks it's wonderful. And before Cinder can show it to Audrey, or more importantly to her, before she can show it to Garen, because she's thinking, hey, maybe if I'm really good at this mechanic stuff, maybe I can help him. Maybe I can help around the house. We haven't really figured out what, but she's like, hey, I can be helpful. But the day she finishes Aiko and she's about to show people, Garen shows up and he's like, I've got the plague.
I know. My gut dropped. And you know it's coming because you've read the whole series.
But I didn't know it was coming right then.
It's such a good... The author pulls 1-2 punches like nothing else.
Sometimes. Only sometimes.
This was a good one.
This was a good one. I highly recommend Glitches. If this was in a Cinder book, that would be awesome. I agree with you.
Yeah, I'll have to go look and see which one. That's the only one that I know for sure is a companion.
Okay, so I take it back. There's another one that I really like that I didn't think about. I really enjoyed The Queen's Army, which is Wolf's backstory before he was Wolf.
Zev,
is it that? Because I was like Zev, but it has an apostrophe and another E, so I wasn't sure how to pronounce it.
According to the audiobook, Rebecca Soler, who is my favorite narrator, that's how she says it, Zev.
That makes sense. So he's 12 and gets chosen to be part of the army, and he knew it was coming, but he didn't want to do it. He loves his family, yada, yada, yada. He keeps doing things specifically so that his brother won't be scared. And that was just so much more of a dynamic than we got in Scarlet. Scarlet did their brother relationship just dirty.
Well, because he kills him, right?
Yeah, he's just like, oh yeah, by the way, that's my brother. He's the worst. He hates me and I hate him. Anyway, he tried to attack Scarlet in multiple ways. And yeah, he tries to kill Scarlet and then Wolf kills him. And when they go to Lunar and see his mom, the mom's like, yay, you're here, and doesn't even ask about the brother.
Yeah. Well, the brother was so excited to be part of the army.
Yeah, but there's got to be something, some dynamic, oh, I miss you. I don't know. We got at the very end of that relationship. And so I'm kind of glad that the short story went back and was like, no, let's see how this developed, how we got here and whatnot. Because you don't start where they were.
Yeah. But he's trying to protect his little brother who he's been in the pack for what, like a year or 2 years?
Oh, but even before that, when he's being picked by the thaumaturges, he's like, oh, I better get out of bed and keep a straight face so my brother's not upset. And then he's in the living room and he's like, oh, I better go with them so my brother doesn't get afraid because he might get picked too. Although I don't know if he realizes his brother is going to get picked because everything is terrible. I don't know why his brother got picked.
Yeah.
Anyway, Wolf gets all his surgeries done. They say he'll sleep, but he's pretty conscious for all of it and has pretty terrible nightmares, honestly. But kind of give him a rundown. They're like, hey, you're kind of Wolf now, but we might be turning you into Big Wolf, which they do turn him into in Winter. But he's been selected for an Earth mission, so this might be as far as he goes. And so he decides, I am going to work really hard to be part of this mission because I don't want to become even more of a monster, which made me so freaking sad that he does. Ugh, it's so sad. But something I wanted to point out, after the surgery, he realizes his gift is gone. Now, in Scarlet, they made it seem like he was just naturally weak. Like he basically had no gift. He was barely above a shell, just naturally, kind of how the guards are. But this specifically says it's gone. And he freaks out because he doesn't have the gift anymore. He can't test bioelectricity. And they're like, oh yeah, we take it out. Why is Levana not using that more?
Yeah.
I know the aristocrats would be so pissed off and wouldn't, but I don't believe she wouldn't use that more.
Especially if it's a surgery that she can do to children because she loves harming children.
A little bit, yeah. But something she can use in the outer sectors or on servants or guards or things around her. I feel like Levana would use that way more.
Because it doesn't make them shells, because shells cannot be controlled, but also don't have powers. But with the wolves,
they can still be manipulated.
So it's the perfect missed opportunity for an evil villain.
For real. So that felt like a little bit of a rewrite. But anyway, he's going to join the wolf gang, and they're like, oh, here's the alpha, and you know how wolves work. They don't work like that. Stop it. That's not how wolves work. The guy who published the study that did that spent the rest of his life trying to change that because that was, and you could make an argument, because that was true of wolves in captivity. Well, these are wolves in captivity, except they say that this is how wolves work. And it's not, like I said, the man who published that study about alpha wolves spent the rest of his career trying to fix the misinformation that he had spread because wolves don't work like that. They don't do this. They do none of this. They don't have an omega that they bully and an alpha that bullies everyone else. It's more like a family structure, honestly. They have to get along with each other to be able to survive, believe it or not. They are very pack creatures. Anyway, but that beside.
I only know about werewolves. I don't know anything about wolves. Thank you, Twilight.
I don't even know. So here's the thing I don't like. So, fine, alpha wolves, whatever. He's just out of surgery. He just finished. He is still fresh. And they let the alpha just beat the crap out of him? I'm sorry. You spent how much money in getting him fixed for the surgery and he's still recovering? At least let him recover before you beat the crap out of him. What if he lost a tooth? What if he had internal bleeding and had to go back into surgery? No.
Yeah.
As a resource.
Establishing the pecking order that quick doesn't make sense, especially because the thaumaturge is still getting used to all of these wolves.
You're just testing fate.
Yeah.
I could have absolutely bought, okay, you're all healed up. We have finished everything. We've kept you to make sure you don't get any infections, that your body doesn't reject this, all this, that, and the other. If they had said, oh, he's fixed, he's recovered, he's fine, he's ready for combat, I would have been fine. But they specifically say he's still recovering and you just beat him up. And I'm just like, if these are nothing but resources to you, you don't do that. Anyway, Z does training and he is very good at it-ish. He's kind of like middle of the pack, which is okay.
No, he's purposefully in the middle of the pack. Did you not catch that from JL?
You get that later. I don't think Z realizes that at this point. He is picked middle of the pack because he's like, oh, well, I want to be high enough where I'm not Omega and everyone picks on me and whatever. But he doesn't want to get involved. He doesn't want to be around the Alpha. He doesn't want anything to do with the Alpha. And so to go higher into the pack rating, he would have to deal with the Alpha. And so he doesn't want to do that. And so he kind of gets into the middle of the pack for that reason. But yeah, he's there for a year and a half. They're told that their pack is going to have, 14 people? And then all of a sudden they're like, oh, we're going to have a 15th member. Here he is. He's the younger Kelsey. He's the little brother, Ran. Why? Why was he picked for this mission? He was literally just picked to have an Omega. He sucks. He's not a good fighter. He's not intelligent. He's not good at what he does, which is what we pointed out at Scarlet. I was like, this guy sucks. Why did you pick him? Not only to become part of your elite force here, but also why did you pick him for an Earth mission? It doesn't make sense other than because then it's dramatic for the plot.
I always thought that JL, because he makes that comment later, but I always thought that he knew that Dev was going to be such a strong leader and he wanted to have the best pack. And so I think they put him in there as a test for him, which is also stupid because it's main character energy, and that's probably not true, but that's what I believe.
It's just stupid.
Yeah, it's dumb either way, but he should not have, there's zero reason.
He should not have passed any of the tests.
Yeah, I don't think he did. I think he was snuck in as a motivator, incentive, whatever.
For the main character.
Protect your brother, or, show up your brother, because you can't let your weak little terrible brother outpace you when you're in the middle of the pack. You deserve to be the top.
But don't worry, he's not going to outpace anyone. He's just going to be Omega. He's going to be like a little flunky.
Oh, no, I meant with Zev.
Oh, yeah. But Brand's it's so stupid. Anyway, the first thing that happens is Brock, who's the former Alpha, is bullying this 12-year-old. And Z calls him out for it. And I'm like, yes, thank you. He's like, why are you bullying 12-year-olds? You are 18. Get your life together. And so he ends up, and so he gets angry that Z called him out for bullying the 12-year-old. And because of that, he bullies a 12-year-old. He just wasting surgeries, honestly. Z and Brock get in a fight. Brock wins, and then Ran is pissed. He's like, let me do my own thing. Meh, 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 meh. There's so much power dynamic going on there that we could get into, but I don't feel like getting into. I don't find it that interesting, honestly. So 5 years later, Z has made a place for himself, like I said, middle of the pack, and Ran is Omega. He's been Omega since he's gotten there. As they've gotten older, he is still Omega, and he's just like a Brock little fanboy. He's a little flunky. It's a whole thing. Anyway, one day, Jael and 49 other thaumaturges show up in the dining area, which apparently has all of the wolves.
That seems impractical.
It seems impossible.
14 wolves strong, each of these packs, times 50. How are they not fighting with other packs?
So many questions, but space-wise, you have lava flow tunnels. Anyway, whatever. They show up, and then Lavana shows up, and she's like, hey, my strong little soldiers, only the strongest can go to Earth, so to fight each other. Okay, bye. I'm gonna go sit over here and watch. Okay. For being terrified of these creatures, because she's always, in all the books, she was terrified of them. You're very okay with just sitting next to them while they fight each other. But that's beside the point. Anyway, guess what? Main character energy. Oh, it should totally go to this other guy. But Jael picks Z and is like, stop holding back. And wouldn't you know it? Actually, Z is suddenly really good at fighting Brock because he's been studying his fights as he bullies the other kids. And guess what? Brock fights dirty, but Z refuses to submit, and gosh darn it, only one of them can survive, so Z kills Brock and becomes the alpha. I knew where it was going. And the fighting scene was actually very interesting to me. I thought that was very well done.
Because, I mean, he's the alpha when he's on Earth.
Yeah, in Scarlet, he is alpha.
Yeah.
Let's say it this way. When I started this short story, I did not see that coming.
Murder.
In front of Lavana, and Lavana claps. No, I'm the only one she claps for. You so right about main character energy.
It so is. She does not remember him specifically whenever winter happens, stories and stuff. It's ironic.
Why wouldn't you remember that?
This is her top dog, and then ends up, she doesn't.
It felt like in winter he was just this random kid that Lavana doesn't care about because he's a number. But then you get this short story, and it's like, even people with memory issues would be like, maybe not know the name, because I don't know if they announced the name or anything, but someone says like, oh yeah, he came in alpha during your little fighting test. And it's like, oh yeah. Does she just deal with so much murder? She's like, another Friday afternoon. I guess so.
But for his main character energy storyline, it is even more ironic that she ends up making him this specific extra wolf thing and like puts him in the suit and just to torture Cinder. And it feels more full circle having this.
Yeah, I think that was also good. Unfortunately, the next one is my least favorite story, Carswell's Guide to Being Lucky.
We can just skip this one.
Let me sum up all of this. So this is the story about when he helped a girl that was being bullied and got in trouble. We remember that and was researching him and found that and was like, oh, clearly he's a good guy because he did this. And he was like, nah, I just wanted to copy your math homework or something. So this is the background of it. The problem with this story is rooted in the fact that Carson is a rich boy.
Yeah. Coming from money and being a scammer is so much grosser than like Aladdin being a scammer because he's poor.
I had to play the game, otherwise he had literally nothing. Yeah.
Yeah.
This dude has no end of resources at his fingertips, and he scams people.
Yeah.
But it's not even lazy because he works so hard for it.
He's like, nah, I just want to be a captain. But he legit is scamming like card scams at lunch and something about tricking the old people in his neighborhood. He calls them scams too.
He knows he's scamming people.
And he has a mental calculation of how much he has and how much he needs to get to his next big thing. And he's like, oh, well, I'm down like $6 today for my goal. And I don't know. Everything about it's gross, and Crest deserves better. And when I'm reading Crest, I think they're cute because it's, I don't know, she's so cute, and he's a guy who does sort of change by the end of the book series for her.
He doesn't, and we'll talk about the wedding when we get there. But the problem I have with this story is when I read Carswell in Scarlet and Cinder in Winter, he comes off as this guy with delusions of grandeur, granted, but was in the army, wanted to work to become a captain, saw his chance when he had it, and has a little bit of a morals issue, honestly.
Yeah, little bit of klepto. It's fine.
Whatever. And yeah, maybe he was a poor guy, and maybe I thought that because I know a lot of people who their only option in life to get out of depravity is to go into the army, into the military. And so I had assumed that was his path. I went into the army because I had no other options. No, he has every option. He has all the options in the world. He wants to be a captain. And you know what? His father, also a member of the military, wants him to become a captain. And all he points out is, if you're going to be a captain, you have to be a pilot first. And if you're going to be a pilot, you need to get good at this math stuff. You need to get your grades up. You need to be able to prove yourself. That's all the dad wants. Just do your dang math homework. And no, he's going to scam this random nice girl out of her math homework because he doesn't want to actually earn it. And so Carswell getting to become a captain at the end of Winter is frustrating now, because now he is a spoiled little rich boy who gets what he wants without working for it, without earning it, without deserving it. He is the worst person. Making him rich was the worst thing she could have done for his character. He is just another entitled little white boy who gets what he wants without earning it.
Yeah.
Because he sucks at being a pilot. And we confirmed that once again in the wedding later on. Oh yeah, no, he still sucks at being a pilot years later.
Yeah. He had one job.
So yeah, that is the worst thing they could have done, is make him a little rich boy. And they do that. So everything's terrible.
I mean, it is the only one where it doesn't feel, I mean, I guess that part might feel like he's rewritten just because we assumed he didn't have any money.
No, the other ones was pretty on point. Although he gets a crush on this girl, actually. I don't know. That's weird. They kind of rewrite him where, oh my gosh, all the popular girls are interested. In fact, every girl's interested. And all the boys just want to buy stuff from him and want to be him. And it's like, that was different because Carswell was like on his game, but you could see through it real fast. But apparently everyone, even teachers, think he's so charming. Okay.
Yeah.
Can't charm his way. Although there's a little bit of a commentary on no tolerance bullying policies, because yeah, those suck. Absolutely. They are trash. But it ends with the nerdy girl feeling bad and letting him copy her homework and then him being like, cool. Anyway, on to the next scam.
Yeah.
I don't like him. All the work she did in 3 books, completely decimated by this prequel and the wedding. But we'll get there. Because next we get After Sunshine Passed By. Cress's backstory is completely rewritten. Because from what you learn, she was found for her hacking skills when she hacked into the communication system to try to get in contact with this random boy's parents.
Yeah.
This time around, she's trying to educate the children.
Sibyl's like, y'all aren't supposed to learn to read. The end.
Yeah, which I really feel like someone should have been like, you're sus, because Cress is trying to hack into the education system so they can teach some of the kids to read and write and whatnot. And she's talking out both sides of her mouth. You find out the reason they tell the children that they're drawing their blood is to try to find a cure for shellness. So, we want a cure so we can add you back to society, but we don't want to teach you how to read. You mean the basic foundation for being part of society?
Also, how does she hack if, she can read?
And she learned to read by hacking into the system so they could do that. And then that got cut off. And so she hacked into it again. I don't know. Not explained.
How do you know how to be a hacker if you don't know what numbers and letters are?
Not explained. So you do find out that Cress is a secret, because I had that theory that Levana actually didn't know Cress was doing any of the work. Because when Sybil says, hey, I have a new job for you, brings her with, apparently she's been in the palace several times. So I was like, maybe they do know about her. But when Sybil takes her to the docks, Cress is shocked that across the room there are other people. And that makes me think, even those trips to the palace, no one was there. And Sybil was just making her do stuff and taking the credit for it. And Levana never actually knew that Cress existed.
Oh, like Sybil was the hacker?
Yeah, or that someone on her team or something. I don't think that Levana realized her entire cyber everything, hacking, whatnot, was an 11-year-old shell doing it. But anyway, also, it talks out of both sides of her mouth because she's like, oh my gosh, the kids never talk to me unless they want something from me. Anyway, here's this other girl saying that it's her fault that the hacking happened to try to protect me. Get your story straight. Pick one out. So she gets put on a rocket ship. Cress is excited. She thinks she's going to Earth, that she's going to be a spy.
She's like, I'm just going to get adopted because I'm basically human. I'm just a shell. I'm human.
But nope, she is going to be in the satellite, and it's very sad. And Sybil dangles the, you'll be a real lunar citizen, which once again, Cress, that's sus, isn't it? Because I thought the whole point of the blood draws was becoming a cure. I could be a lunar citizen to begin with. There's some things that 11-year-olds might not pick up, but I was like, girl, you need to get yourself together. Someone's going to point it out. Kids are smarter than we think they are sometimes. Sometimes they can be very observant, and she's lucky that no one's caught on yet. But the whole thing felt like a rewrite. It's very short. It's one of the shorter ones, and everything is kind of newish. Cress kind of has her, I have dreams of grandeur. But it's not the same thing because in Cress, they're a coping mechanism. So maybe she was already coping, but yeah, there were just a bunch of things that felt a little like a rewrite. The Princess and the Guard. So we get Winter and Jason, and I really like the story, but this is the one that has all the content warnings. But this one made me think all of these deserve to be longer, because Winter's is one of the longest. And it starts when she's little, and she's playing damsel in distress with Jason, but actually space pirates. But actually damsel in distress. It's a whole thing, and it's actually very cute, and I think it says a lot about their dynamics.
They're so cute. I think they are my favorite couple.
You get Winter saves the servant. You know, she's been taking lessons for her gift, and oh my gosh, she's so talented. She could be a thaumaturge.
Which is an honor.
It's a big deal.
Winter sees it as an honor because she's young and that's all she knows.
They're very glorified. She's like, oh my goodness, that's like a huge thing. And Jason's like, oh.
Yeah, because he knows.
He's actually interacting with them, possibly. But she's like, you don't get it. They're just amazing. And I'm going to be amazing. And it's going to be wonderful.
She's so proud of herself. And Jason's like, okay.
Although I'm kind of shocked that Levana is encouraging her to develop her gift, given that she's so distrusting. I don't know. It was just Levana is encouraging her to have a gift instead of being weak. I don't understand. Anyway, we'll get to that in a second, though. So she saves the servant from committing suicide, and whatever, she thinks she's saved her. She doesn't understand. Her dad's even like, well, maybe next time you talk to them about their issues and not just force them to do stuff. Winter doesn't understand. Anyway, Winter's dad dies after giving her a lesson about how important free will is.
Rip.
Which is the saddest part, knowing what we know from Therist. Anyway, so after the assassination, she doesn't want to be a thaumaturge anymore, but she's still practicing her gift.
Years pass.
Years pass. And the whole like, oh, you and Jason are getting older. You know, you're going to have to marry a court guy soon, so you guys need to stop being together. And they don't. But years pass. She wakes up in the middle of the night. She was having a nightmare about the assassination. It was a nightmare about her father. So she goes to get comfort from Jason. She does a lot, apparently. And she finds out that the maid did commit suicide, which is very sad. Because the next day, I am a little shocked. What ends up happening is Winter finds out because Jason found out from his father who found the note. I'm a little shocked that the thaumaturge didn't erase the guard's mind or something, because it has some very big information, and it reveals that she was pregnant, most likely from a close to the top Amory thaumaturge who will become the head thaumaturge when Sybil passes, and a non-consensual relationship. And so Winter is like, holy crap, this whole time. Because she's been doing things like, oh, every time she sees the maid, she tries to give her a boost by giving her happy feelings and encouraging. But she's noticing after a couple years, she's avoiding Winter completely. Every time she sees her, she tries to get away from her, and she just doesn't understand because she's like, I'm helping her. And then having this bit of context, she realizes I've been perpetuating the abuse, and that really, really messes with Winter's psyche. And Jason tries to be like, well, it's not your fault. You didn't commit the bad deed. And she's like, yeah, but I had a part in this. And so that's when she decides, I'm never going to use my gift ever again, just like she points out in Cress when Scarlet gets kidnapped. I want to say that's when she's like, oh yeah, I don't use my gift or whatever. But
yeah, or very beginning of Winter. They're basically not in Cress.
Yeah. So Jason worries about lunar sickness, but Winter's like, nah. And then Jason wants to be a doctor and whatnot.
Him becoming a guard was so devastating.
Okay, we will get to that because that was a rewrite for sure. There's a point, and she covers for it because she's like, oh, there's people with gifts that can use it to protect themselves so they don't whatever. And I'm like, I really wish she would practice using her gift to do that. Then she wouldn't have to worry about lunar sickness because she can use her gift, but she uses it to protect herself. It's a whole thing. Anyway, Levana threatens to harm her if Winter doesn't show any signs of her gift. And like I said, I don't understand. Her dad's gone. She's growing into a young woman that looks very much like her mother, which is threatening to Levana. The palace are starting to actually have respect for her because she doesn't manipulate anyone. She doesn't do anything like that. She's very beautiful. So she is a threat to Levana. Absolutely. Why would you include a gift on top of that? Isn't it better that she's weak-willed? But she's like, no, stop making me a laughingstock in the court.
Quit taking her to court then.
She's not even your blood daughter. Why does it matter? Anyway, if you don't have a gift, I'm going to give you facial scars, so you'll have a reason to hide, except she doesn't. Anyway, because she gets those facial scars and dresses the wounds, his dad gets demoted and he's going to be moving out into a foreign sector. Possibly because the queen didn't like their relationship, possibly because of a bunch of other stuff we find out in Ferris, but yeah, it's completely rewritten because in the books, and you can speak more to this now because you just reread all of them, wasn't it in Winter that he says, oh, I wanted to be a doctor, but basically I was forced to become a guard?
I mean, you don't consider this a force?
No, because it was his choice. It was his choice. I think he would have acted differently because he says, even those books, I'll do whatever I have to protect my princess. I'll do whatever I have to protect my princess. But when the doctor thing comes up, he's very begrudging. And he's like, I was forced to do this. She didn't approve. She didn't allow me to become a doctor. I applied and I wasn't allowed to become a doctor. I had to become a palace guard. But in the short story, he decides that Lavanna harming Winter physically, I have to protect her. So I have to become a palace guard. And because she was like, no, go live in your new housing until your internship and then whatever. And he's like, nope, I'm going to be a palace guard. And so it was just because of how he acts in the book. And he's like, I have to protect my princess. I will do anything to protect her. Yeah, I just feel like he would talk about it differently.
I don't know. It felt on brand.
I don't know. I felt like that was a rewrite. Because a big reason is she wants him to go, but she almost throws herself off the balcony during the hallucination. And so he's like, I won't leave. So not only was it protecting her from Lavanna, but protecting her from herself because of the hallucinations. That felt different.
And the lunar sickness also, if she only did her glamour, or, oh, well, I just changed the color of my shoes and did it as a glamour, she could have not gone crazy.
If she did it, yeah, she could have done it in private. There's a lot of things she could have done, but she did it in secret as a teenager, so I'm not terribly surprised that it was... Teenagers can be a lot. When they get into something, they feel it with a very deep emotion. You can see when they start becoming somewhat politically or whatever issue they become, because in their developing minds, everything's black and white as a kid, and then you start seeing gray. And when they start seeing gray, they feel upset and confused and whatever. And when you're so used to seeing black or white, any amount of gray is black. So they can be very strongly felt about things. And so I'm not terribly surprised by that. Jason tried to convince her otherwise, and she's like, nope, I'm not doing the thing. And so if any adult had been there to advise her, they could have helped her with that. Or maybe, like I said, get that training to help her protect herself. And so maybe she could protect her friends or stuff. But I'm not terribly surprised, since the only two people that know about this are Winter and Jason, because she's pretending.
That she just lost the gift, yeah.
She's like, oh, I was so upset by the maid that I just lost my power. It's gone. So she's not even telling people, oh, I don't use my power. She's just like, oh, lost my gift. It's gone. She even does. So I'm not terribly surprised with no one to guide her that she just like immediately was like, the most rash decision I'm going to commit to.
I did like this one. It's about half of the short stories I actually liked, and the other ones either made me mad or are skippable.
Well, like I said, it's just another example to me of some of the short stories need to be longer, except for Carson's. Carson's was kind of long and I hated every moment of it.
Yep.
The little android, I felt like an idiot. But then you said it took you a while to figure it out. It's the Little Mermaid, the little android. But I was with you. I thought it was Aiko. It's like Mech 6.0. And I was like, holy crap, are we getting an Aiko background? Because it's like, oh, she's just there, and then all of a sudden her chip, like, oh, she feels a spark of electricity, and she has personality defects now and whatnot. And so I was like, holy crap, we're getting an Aiko backstory.
There's also a character that she really emulates, and her name is Maiko.
I thought the same thing. I was like, oh, so that's how we get the name Aiko. It's because of Maiko. No.
Which, I mean, I guess they're both pretty common names.
I have no idea.
I don't know. But she meets Cinder at some point, and she goes and gets fixed and needs a new body or whatever. Is this how you somehow get in the hands of Lynn Guerin? But also, it's not, because her personality chip was already there. But if you didn't do the glitches, if you only did this one first, you could think that it was, that she ended up with Aiko. But it's not. This is a random other android, 0.6, whatever, that's the same as Aiko, that also, I guess they all malfunction.
I'll tell you when I figure it out. First of all, it's not Aiko. And then I'll tell you when I finally figured out that this was the Little Mermaid. It's embarrassing from my point of view, but I will be so honest about it. So you have a mech 6.0, and that's their name. Eventually, she takes on the name of Star. We're just going to use that. But Star is a mechanical. She works at a ship dock. She helps create airships and build them and whatever they need to do. And she likes looking into the space. She does things that other androids do. She sees a holographic Kai trader card and basically falls in love with Kai. So I thought it was Aiko.
It's not you, it's the author.
I was like, oh, so that's how Aiko fell in love with the Emperor and whatnot. She's like, oh, there's something wrong with me, and is there something wrong with me? Anyway, there's this luxury yacht that comes in, and she apparently has a crush on the engineer, but the engineer has a crush on the rich daughter of this guy named Maiko. Like I said, we both thought, oh, that's where Aiko gets her name, because she's trying to emulate this person. So they're touring the place, looking around. They go to a second story thing, and a crane tips. And so Dadarin, who's the engineer, saves Maiko's life by pushing her out of the way, but falls unconscious into an oil vat. I don't know how, but ends up saving this man.
She's just little arms and legs. She's a tiny robot. She's not big.
So she just climbs into the oil vat, goes down, and finds him and manages to pull him back up. And so they then end up saving his life. And so she's sent to maintenance because she's covered in oil. But the mechanic's like, hey, this isn't good. And the shipyard owner's like, she saved Dadarin's life. And he's like, yes. And that's kind of the problem because she's an android. And notice how all the other androids kept doing their job, but she did this. And so, yes, it's good that she saved his life, but an unpredictable android is a dangerous android. So he's like, maybe there's something wrong with her personality chip or something. And I was like,
Aiko.
So is the shipyard owner going to be like, no, let's just sell her? And that's what I thought was going to happen was, oh, well, we'll come back tomorrow and they were going to have like Audrey or Garen or Audrey's parents or something. And that was going to be how they got Aiko. No, she finds a locket that belongs to Dadarin in her hand. It's a hologram of the universe, probably worth a lot of money. And so she's like, you know what? I need to run away and not be turned into scrap. So at that point, I was like, oh man, only for Audrey to turn you into scrap later.
No, it's not her.
So Star leaves the shipyard and goes to find Cinder's booth. This is when I finally realized that it's not Aiko.
Not gonna lie, the first time I read this, I still didn't know at this point.
Because at some point, Cinder's like, oh, you remind me of my friend Aiko.
Yeah, I'm dumb. I just still didn't.
So she wants a new body. Since hers is all covered in oil and it's all an issue. But that's going to take a week to get in, and she doesn't really have anything to trade. Nothing worth of value, but Cinder takes pity on her and is like, hey, in the back, I've got this old escort droid body just lying around. And I was immediately like, Aiko is going to be pissed.
I know. She definitely could have gotten a new body so soon.
She would have loved that. But you come to find out the voice box doesn't work. And I was like, okay. Well, Mech ends up taking it, uploading her personality chip into the escort droid. It's like 20 years old, and she's like, hey, your personality chip, it might get rejected at some point, and it's a whole thing. So over the next 2 weeks, she just creates an identity for herself. This android, how? How did you get access to all those systems? What is happening? All you do is screws and stuff. How? Anyway, that's beside the point. Over the next 2 weeks, she's creating this identity and whatever, and she applies at the shipyard as a technician. And for 30-year-old technology, and I know it's the future, and so all technology is so much better, but she just straight up is just like, hey, I'm a human being. And he's like, okay, you're a human being. Doesn't suspect a thing.
I know, what a weird thing to say out loud.
But she's mute, and there's this thing where her chip doesn't work with the body, and so she feels physical pain every time she walks. This is when I finally realized, oh, is the Little Mermaid. Not even she doesn't have a voice. The fact that she specifically, every time she walks, she feels pain. Because in the Danish original, she felt pain every time she walked because she's not supposed to have legs. And so that's when...
I didn't catch the legs bit at all, but the voice box was, oh, she saved this man and now can't tell him what her name is. Little Mermaid.
Which I was kind of interested in because this is a Hans Christian Andersen book. And so apparently we've moved on from the Grimm brothers. Which is funny. I think we had a question where it's like, oh, if you had to write another Grimm's Brothers, what would it be? And you probably had already read this book, but I hadn't even considered that she would move away from Grimm's. But apparently the answer is The Little Mermaid. That's what she would write about.
Well, I mean, there aren't really that many other princesses that they could have done, because Sleeping Beauty is very similar to a few of the Rapunzel stories a little bit, like the Tower Locked Awayness.
But we've already talked about how she does a Rumpelstiltskin in another series. She does an Alice in Wonderland in another series. But she didn't have to do just princesses. The Grimm brothers had a ton of different stories. But beside the point, yes, that's how long it took me to realize that this was The Little Mermaid. And then at point, I was like, does that make Cinder Ursula?
But she doesn't give her a voice box, though. She just doesn't have a voice.
But she gives her the new body and is like, hey, you can't have a voice.
You have a limited time frame also.
Yeah.
Not, hey, you have to kiss or you're gonna die, but...
It's the whole thing. So she's saving up for a new body, and that's what she's doing. I don't know where she sleeps. She claims to live near the engineer, Dadarin, and so I don't know what she does at night. Finds a charging port, apparently. So many questions, but that's beside the point. Anyway, Dadarin and Maiko are still very much a thing, and Star hates it. But Maiko's really nice to her. It's a whole thing. To the point where one day Star runs low on power and falls at the end of a shift, and Maiko sends Dadarin off, oh, get a glass of water or whatever. And Maiko's like, hey, I realize you're an android, because Like notices Like, and she reveals that she's a cyborg. And that's the reason that they need to get the ship going, because the dad's like, hey, there's a cyborg draft, and it seems to skew towards young women. And Maiko's like, I don't know how he came up with that assumption, but I'm in the background going, he's not wrong.
Yeah.
She would have been fine because it's a search for Princess Celine, actually, but
it's a draft. They could have picked her at any point.
They picked her at any point, so that's what they're doing. They're trying to escape. And I know she had to follow the story, but why can't Dadarin just come with them? Why can't they just get married and go off together in the ship? But the central conflict is the dad and Maiko are going to go away on the ship. Technically, Maiko's on the ship specifically. And he's like, no, you can't marry Dadarin. And they act like the only options are she gets on the ship, goes with her dad, is safe from the cyborg draft, or she stays behind with Dadarin until he can afford his own ship and go off on there. Why?
Because the dad's rich and doesn't like the working class.
Why can't Dadarin just come on the ship with you and go off? Or here's another option. Why doesn't Maiko go off in her ship? And then when Dadarin saves enough money for his own ship, they can meet up.
Because they're in love. Romeo and Juliet.
There's some creative problem solving that's here to be done.
Nope. Teenagers in love. Can't do it. Or young people. I don't think they're teenagers.
Yeah, he's a whole engineer, so he's had some schooling. So what ends up happening, and I don't understand this. I have questions here. Because, and the scene's written kind of confusing, and it took me a minute to realize what was happening, but Star takes Maiko's place and rides off into the sunset with the dad. And the dad thinks that it's Maiko, but Maiko is actually back with Dadarin.
Did you not look at her face?
How? Yeah, how is the dad not realizing that this isn't Maiko?
She's like, I made sure to show my arm being cyborg.
But then immediately as they're taking off, and she's like, oh, she becomes one of the stars, which is very cute touch, because in the original she becomes Seafoam. But she immediately dies? You don't think the dad's gonna be like, oh, that's not my child. Turn around. Go back to the shipyard. What? We've got some plot holes. I want to enjoy the story, but this ending makes no sense. Anyway, you get the mechanic. We can skip this real fast. It is Cinder meeting Kai, but from Kai's perspective.
Yeah, exactly what you think it is.
Yeah, it's kind of cute.
Just to show that he sort of already acknowledged her in more of an actual way instead of, oh, she's my mechanic. It's, oh, she's kind of cute. Maybe she should come to the ball with me.
Yeah.
It's skippable. So skippable.
It's so skippable. It's kind of a cute idea, but I wish that we got a proper Kai prequel of some sort. Maybe when his mom died, or heard about the plague, or meeting Levana for the first time. Any of that would have been really interesting, but yeah, we just kind of phone it in a little. No.
This one was not a good one. I mean, it's a good story.
Not a replacement. And so finally we get something old, something new, which is the only book that takes place after Cinder. Cinder is the most efficient leader ever, and in just 3 years, Cinder has abdicated the throne and Luna is a democracy.
That is not enough time, guys.
That is not enough time whatsoever. Considering these people were so superstitious that the same bloodline had to rule them, the most efficient leader that has ever done anything, clearly.
Also, she's 19 now? Maybe 20, depending on when her birthday fell?
Yeah, way fast. Also, Aiko and Kitty might still be a thing. And you've read Nerves and Wire, so I'm not going to ask, but...
They definitely seem like they're together in this.
Yeah, they have banter, they tease each other, but in like a flirty way.
Instead of when we left him in Winter, the book where it was, androids are gross. Why do you keep talking to me like you're a human? That's how it ended, basically.
Questions.
And she's like, he's so hot. That's how Winter ended.
But to be fair, that's how Aiko feels about literally every guy she meets.
The audiobook person, she does do a very good, almost Irish accent for Kenny.
Because why not?
It's just fun.
She's just flexing at this point.
A year or so from now, whenever you do the series again, you have to do the audiobook because this narrator is so fun with all their little accents and it's so cute and it helps bring a little bit to life. It's so cute. I know you do have the physical books and just bought those, but the audiobooks are so cute. And then it will help you get through Winter. 24 hours of an audiobook, so long.
But Thorn and Crest show up, picks them up. Apparently they hang out all the time still, which is interesting because at the end of Winter, it really felt like, oh, we're all going our separate ways. We might not see each other for a while, but nope, they all hang out for the most part.
Scheduling conflicts with Kai and Cinder, but
everyone else. So they get to the farm, there's paparazzi, which Scarlet scares them off with a shotgun blast, and no. If that happened in real life, can you imagine? The paparazzi are outside for a royal wedding. They have it in a rustic location for some reason instead of a church. And a member of the royal family, or even just a guard shooting a gun. There's video. Video exists. You don't think that would be live streamed so fast that this woman is totally unhinged?
I don't think Scarlet cares about that at all. You tripping.
The way they treat the paparazzi is not realistic at all. It's like, oh, don't worry, all the reporters are asleep, so we're allowed to go on. No, they on that grind. They awake 24 hours. They're gonna watch. Anyway, the way they treat paparazzi is like the most fantasy thing I think was in this series, but
maybe the paparazzi in the future are different. I mean, except for right outside Kai's window, you don't really see any of that.
I don't even think Luna has journalists.
Even on Earth, they're being hunted, but it's not like reporters. It's just bounty hunters type of stuff.
Yeah, so that was probably the most unrealistic part of this book. But here's the second nail in Thorn's coffin. They show up, they meet people. Thorn runs into Emily again, who he wanted to kidnap in the second book because she was pretty, and then we both thought she might be Sleeping Beauty, and then she wasn't.
Yeah.
Thorn starts flirting immediately. She's like, hey, can I see her? I'm so excited to see this beautiful woman again. And Cinder's like, dude, that's not cool. And then Crest says, verbatim, it doesn't really faze me much anymore.
Yeah, I don't like that.
Besides, he probably already told her he loved her. So what else can he say? This completely erases all of the progress he made in Winter. All of his commitment issues, all of his being like, I do that for people that don't matter, but I don't do that with you because I'm in love with you, does not matter. He's still flirting with other women in front of her.
Crest deserves better.
Crest just feels like a broken and beaten down, abused, battered wife. I hate it. I hate Thorn. I wish this book didn't exist because it just, every little bit of progress Thorn had is just completely eviscerated. I'm not happy for Crest. She fell in love with the first guy she ever saw and then just never tried anyone. Because you can't even be like, hey Crest, have you considered being with someone that actually is obsessed with you and is enamored with you and thinks you put the moon in the sky? Because no, she hasn't. She's only ever liked this guy. And it feels like this is my first relationship. This is my high school boyfriend. We got married right out of high school. This is the only relationship we've ever had. And we've been married for 20 years, but we don't like each other. together at this point, but hey, gotta stay for the kids. It's so messed up. This is supposed to be a celebration of the love interest of all the books, and he's the worst. But anyway, we're gonna gloss over this with a surprise wedding for Scarlet.
That was pretty funny, though.
It was cute. I like the idea. I like the little breadcrumbs they leave leading up to it, that something's going on.
It's a good little kind of surprise.
Yeah. Wolf mentions, oh, make sure she has something old. And so you have the 9, something old, something new, something borrowed, something blue. Aiko does her hair and stuff, and Winter embroiders the word alpha on her dress in blue thread. And they try to pull the, oh, they're having alpha relationship. That's what makes them so good. Even with my wolf science aside, being like, oh, their alpha relationship, it's a little cringy now. The red pillars have taken that away from us. But yeah, I mean, it's cute. Cress helps, Cinder helps, and the guys all set up the decorations downstairs because she's been upset. Everyone in the village is coming. There's all this paparazzi. It's become a political event about, oh my gosh, the first human and lunar wedding since probably for a lot of people's lifetime. So it's becoming political and she hates it and she just wants it to be a low-key thing with the people close to her. And so they make it happen. It's very sweet. They dance. Scarlet and Wolf both exchange vows. It's very cute. It's a whole thing. It's adorable. And then later, Kai takes her out. Oh, there was a moment where they mentioned, of course, to Scarlet, you know, grandmother loves you. She's probably very proud of you, which got me.
And Winter makes her little comment.
Oh, it got me. It was like, oh, I need a moment. And then later on, Kai mentions, hey, Michelle would also be proud of you, Cinder. Cinder mentions, and Kai also mentions that they both wish they could have met her officially, her not being in a tank and slightly drugged. And it was like, oh, that was a good moment. But then, of course, Kai proposes and whatnot, and now they're engaged, and woo! They can finally be together. And it's just like, this book is so good. You remember what you like about all the couples. Winter and Jason don't really come up much, but you got a ton of them in their story, so it was okay. But you remember what you liked about Scarlet and Wolf. You remember what you like about Kai and Cinder, and then Thorn. So, yeah, but that's all the stories.
Yeah.
General thoughts. Yep, that was a book of short stories.
You get what I meant.
It's a lot of nothing.
Some of them are good, but it's not really worth talking about, honestly. I mean, overall, when I recommend the series, I'm not like, oh, but you need to do this. I make sure people know about Lavana's story. They have to read that. And with the graphic novels, I mean, they're cute, but I don't really care about them as the series. This one, I don't really care about being part of the series. I do like this last one, the Something Borrowed one.
I wanted more of that.
You can take or leave. You can make your own little fan fiction in your head of what happens after winter. It's fine. You don't need it.
Would have been really interested in how Cinder does her stuff, but it's all glossed over. How Kai manages stuff, it's all glossed over. How Winter is doing with her implant, which apparently she's doing fine once you see her at the wedding, but her and Jason adjusting to their new dynamic.
Yeah, I think you'll like the Wires and Nerves one because it is a decent bit of the middle ground, but also something happens in that is not brought up in the Something Borrowed. That I feel like they would still be talking about this only a few years after.
Yeah, because canonically Wires and Nerves happens before this book.
Between Winter and this.
But it was written after this one. This author is not afraid to rewrite things and just be like, yep, there's a plot hole now.
This is it now. Just keep up. It's fine.
Yes. And they're both graphic novels, which is an interesting choice. I'm curious about that, but
yeah,
we'll get to that. Yeah, I totally understand what you were saying. You were like, some of them are good, but mostly it's a skip.
Yeah, so overall, it's fine. Read it or don't.
Take it or leave it.
Like I said, this is only the third time I've done this one. It's a skip. It's fine.
One question for the author. I would be really curious. Was all of this imagined, workshopped, written after Winter? Or did she have these stories rattling around in her brain and she wrote them down? Or did she have writings, like scraps of writings where she wrote down things like this? Because you write a bunch more, you think about a bunch more of the backstory than you ever use. But you need to know that stuff because it informs the character. And so I'm just curious, did this project come along because maybe even this way, the publisher was pushing it, the fans were wanting more, they wanted more of this? Or was this a passion project of her? Like she had all these scraps of writing and she was like, I want the world to see this. I want this to happen. I would just be curious. And maybe story by story too, because maybe some of the stories were written beforehand and that's why you get them in those other books. Like maybe the Cinder one was written really beforehand. And so when the reprints and stuff, you know, they did the series and the reprints came out. I was like, okay, well, here's this short story for this one. And maybe that was so successful that she wrote a bunch more. But yeah, I'd be curious when each of these short stories was written or conceptualized.
My question is, did the Levana story start as a short story? Because I think she should just flesh out some of the stuff in these short stories and just make super long extra books. She should pull Stephanie Meyer and 10 years later just release for no reason, just whatever she feels like.
Cinder, from Kai's perspective, I'd read that.
She already did it. I think she was practicing. I mean, she got the mechanic one.
Cinder from Kai's perspective would be fascinating.
The problem is we get so much of all of the characters.
We do. It moves around where Twilight is a first person.
Very specific to only knowing the knowledge that you know.
You have one narrator. Yeah.
That specifically wouldn't work.
Because there's a ton of scenes of Kai in the castle, and this is what he's doing, and this is why he makes his decisions. So, yeah, technically, we already know. But
some of the prequels, even if they did they were all 7 years old and did a whole bunch of from that specific year, because that's basically what the Cress and the Jason Winter early parts are, and the Zayas.
They are around the same age, yeah.
When Cinder was first, she was 11 when she was woken.
Still, she was 11, but other characters were 12, 13.
Yeah, the author could do so much. She does have a ton of other books and stuff and different little series, and she just got excited and just did a Alice in Wonderland book.
She has 2 of those, yeah.
Whatever she feels like doing.
I think she has 2 for Rumpelstiltskin.
Yeah, I think I only did the first one with that one.
But yeah, she has a bunch of other ones as well. I'd just be curious if after writing an 824-page book with 97 chapters, was she just like, I am so spent. I need to write short stories. She's like, I can't do long format again. I can't do this. Fairest it came out earlier than that. So it was just like, I'm just curious if when she came back to this world, she's like, I can't. And then to go on and then do graphic novels, I'm really curious if Winter burned her out.
Yeah, I was just saying, because the graphic novels, they're short anyways, but the plot is very minimal because it's a graphic novel.
Yeah.
They say nothing.
So many questions. Rating. I would give this seeing a picture of the galaxy out of 10. You get the basic idea. It can be very beautiful, and the best pictures are very interesting, but it's not like seeing it yourself. Interrelated to this, reading the book made me want to reread the series again. And so in that way, I kind of got a glimpse of the characters that I love, that I enjoy, the writing style that really draws you in and stuff. And so I got glimpses of that in the series. And then there are moments where I was like, okay, this feels kind of second rate comparison to all of those books. This might be my least favorite, even including my hatred of Fairest, which is not hatred of Fairest because it's a bad book, but because she does it very well. The point is, you're not supposed to like Luana. So that's my rating. Seeing a picture of the galaxy out of 10.
I would give it sending a postcard from your hometown to yourself. Basically along the same lines of, it just made me want to go read the things I'm familiar with, the things I care about, which is the actual series and not this book. The metaphor's lost a little bit, but that's what I mean. I just got the word postcard stuck in my head, and that's all I could think about.
Read again. If I were to pick up this book again and be like, yeah, I want to reread the story, I might read the wedding story.
Yeah.
After I finish Winter.
And Winter and Jason's story.
See, but I've read it now. I don't see what I would gain from any of the stories, even the little android one. I think the wedding one really adds to the series. It ties everything up in a nice little bow. You get to experience some of the stuff that's kind of hinted at in Winter, and it's just a very sweet ending. But I don't know, none of the prequels really hit me. Maybe I'll do what you said and
do it with the story.
Do it with the story. Maybe reread the intros right before the book where the character gets introduced and see how that might add to my thoughts on characters and stuff. But otherwise, I just like picking the book up again in general. I don't see what I would get from it when I could just read the books.
Yeah, I just do it because I do the whole series. A lot of times I do skip it Or like with Uglies where it's like, well, I didn't do extras. It's fine.
This is your extras.
This is my extras, yeah.
No, extras is better than specials, but that's beside the point. Favorite of the series so far, because I'm going to include Wires and Nerves in both books as part of the series. I'm still at Cinder. I think you're still at Crest.
I know. Hating on Thorn makes it harder to like.
It's so hard!
But she is so cute.
She deserves better.
Because all of the other women, Winter a little bit not, because she also has brain damage, but the other two girls are so like headstrong and it's like, we're going to take down the world. And Cress is like, I just want to see the world. She's so cute. I love her story, Rapunzel. And I think because we do get so many Cinderella and even Little Red Riding Hood, I've done a decent bit of those kind of stories. But Rapunzel basically gets nothing. She has like 2 books. I guess I need to do more research and find more of her stuff, but she's ignored. Snow White gets us 1,000 books, Cinderella.
Rapunzel's a little harder to adapt. It's a little harder to modernize without it being concerning.
I did do recently a Rapunzel where it's like she was in like a cult lighthouse thing. It was very confusing, but it was a Rapunzel something. I'll have to find the title for that and send you that because it was a trip. Yeah, still Crest. Even with all of Thorn's faults, I can't hate on my girl. Read the series. Thanks.
But have you read this book, Earth or Luna? Do you have any book recommendations for us? Tell us all about it in the comments below. If you liked the video, hit like, and if you're enjoying yourself, hit subscribe for more. Thank you for exploring Stars Above with us. Join us next time when we'll be covering What Once Was Mine by Liz Braswell. I'm Sam Reiner.
And I'm Danielle.
And we hope to see you and a friend here next time. Escape from the Book Club is a Lunar Skulk production. Check us out on TikTok or Instagram to keep up to date with us. Lunar_SKULK.